Welcome to the cityCURRENT Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, cityCURRENT CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome to the cityCURRENT Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we always love having our cityCURRENT partners come on the show, talking about their world, their expertise. That's why we're honored to have with us our friend Chris White. He is the founder and principal at Harvest Family Wealth. Chris, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm awesome, Jeremy. When you do these intros, man, I just love it. I just get fired up. You have so much energy. It's fantastic.
Well, hey, I appreciate your support for all we do to power the good. We love working with you, and you're awesome when you talk about what you do and also to your commitment to the community. And I think that's a through line we'll talk about as well. But let's start out. Give us some background. Give us a little bit of history for Harvest Family Wealth.
Yeah, so Harvest was started January 1st of 2007. And so it's had a couple iterations to get to where we are today, specifically with this brand. But we're the foundation of our practice is really deep technical financial planning. And so that's what I started building the practice on years ago. And over the years, we've really cemented into that practice speed, efficiency, and care. And so the way that I generally say it is, at the end of the day, we're here to love on people and care for people. And the way in which we get to do that, our platform, is through really deep technical financial planning. So, very simply, that's Harvest. That's where we are, and that's where we've been and where we are today.
Well, I love the fact that you help families achieve their financial goals, but you do it in a very powerful way, and to your point, very deep. And we've had a number of conversations around, especially philanthropic giving, and the way you approach that is, to me, unique. And so we'll kind of weave some of that in, but when you're sitting down and starting the process, talk about some of the questions you like to ask, some of the things that you like to really start to figure out so that you can go deep. So in other words, when you're starting out, where do you like to start?
Yeah. At the end of the day, one of the things we're super passionate about that we really want to help people with is identify, okay, where am I today? Where do I desire to be? Not only during my lifetime, but we're really passionate about the multi-generational piece. And so I think a lot of planners really focus on just, okay, what do we need to do to get you through your life? But a lot of the work that we do is it's including that, but it's also, okay, what do we do about Gen 2, Gen 3? How do you want these assets to transition to them? How do you want your values to transition? What do you want that legacy to look like? And so the questions that I want to figure out is, okay, where are we today? How do you feel about things? And really do a deep dive to figure out where they're at, and then identifying where they want to be, again, multi-generationally, and then identifying what those goals are to get them, or what the goals are in total, but then how to get them there. What are the gaps that we're identifying? What are the things they feel great about? What are the things they don't feel great about? One of the things that I asked folks about, had a meeting with a client a couple of weeks ago and just asked them, how do you feel about where you are from a retirement asset perspective? They're like, we carry some shame with it. We're not exactly where we want to be. And they were in actually pretty good shape, but they just carried shame with that. So it's just unearthing some of those things and identifying, money's very emotional. It's amoral. It's not good or bad. It's just, but it does carry a lot of emotion. And it's one of those below the waterline topics that people really don't want to talk with. And so I get to step in this intimate place and just uncover, where are you? How do you feel about that? Where do you want to be? What are you excited about? What are your desires? What are your goals? And then helping them put the plan together to get there.
When you talk about business owners, usually there's a lot of complexity. You're dealing with trusts and estates, and you're dealing with land and valuables and, all these things. Talk about your collaborative approach, and especially with complexity and simplicity.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our specializations is with business owners, so entrepreneurial families. One of the things, and you know this well, Jeremy, a lot of business owners think their businesses are worth a whole lot more than they actually are. Sometimes it's flipped around. I can tell you stories about that too, but that's kind of the anomaly, kind of the rare deal. So one of the things that we really want to do from a collaborative and a collaborative nature is bring a really good team around the business owner, preferably a couple years out before they're actually ready to sell. But bring a really good team that might have a value advisor, that might have an M&A advisor, CPA, attorney, estate planning attorney, all of these different people to bring them around the table to help the business owner identify, okay, what is it worth? Is it close to what I think it's actually worth? Is the business ready to be sold? Am I ready to sell it? Is it attractive to the outside? So going through these exercises to help folks. But to your point, it can be extremely complex. Some of them can be really simple. But what I have found is the recipe to help even in the simplest cases and the most complex cases is having the right team around you. And so at the end of the day, we just want to be super collaborative with those that are going to be really helpful to those that we get to serve and make sure that we're lockstep with those guys and we're all planning together for that business owner or for that family.
Give us a couple of trends that have your attention right now. When you talk about the stock market, it goes up and down, and I know that's a process, and communication is important and understanding where you are. And so, that piece of it from an investment standpoint is something obviously that you follow as trends. But when you look at trends right now, what are some of the things that have your attention?
I think there's a pretty big shift going on right now in the financial system, just all together. And I think a lot of the things that we've done historically, I think, are working well and will continue to do well. But we're seeing a shift. I mean, goodness gracious, AI it's a big deal. We're living in an incredible time right now, and AI is changing. It's just changing the world. It's also changing the financial system. You're also looking at pieces like the blockchain. The blockchain is changing the financial system. You're looking at cryptocurrency. It's changing the financial system. So that doesn't mean that we throw out the things that have worked really well over time, investing in good, stocks and bonds and mutual funds and ETFs. All of that stuff still has a place. But one of the trends that I'm seeing is that a lot of folks really want diversification. So they still want mutual funds and ETFs and that type of deal, but they also want access to private equity. They want access to real estate. They do want access to, in some scenarios, cryptocurrency. They want access to M&A deals. And so folks are, again, what we've done historically has worked pretty well, but folks really want to diversify more and have a more holistic approach to their investment portfolio. So I'd say that's one of them. I think another thing that's a trend that I follow a lot because it directly affects what the equity markets do is liquidity. So what does global liquidity look like right now? And we're coming into a phase, it seems, where we're coming into quantitative easing. And so that's when they loosen the restrictions on credit. And so, and what most people see that is when we start dropping interest rates. And so that generally bodes well for equity markets. And so that's a trend that we're seeing that hopefully continues quite a bit over the coming, 12, 18, 24 months. The other trend that we see is printing money. So our government is printing a lot of money, and will continue to because, and I could go down that rabbit hole and we don't have the time to do that, but the debt that we have as a country requires us to continue to print so that we can take care of the debt obligations that we have in different pieces. And so when you see quantitative easing, when we see the loosening and the dropping of the interest rates, and we see the printing of money, it infuses a lot of capital into the markets. And so generally that bodes well for equity markets, which I think is a good thing. But ultimately, we do have a debt and deficit problem in the United States that we've got to try to fix. So.
Well, and that's why I think these are important conversations to understand the complexities, what's going on at a macro level, and obviously how that impacts individuals and families and businesses too. And so I think these are important conversations, and that's why I love having them with you who's paying attention. You and I have had a number of conversations around philanthropic giving, and so I want to touch on that because to me, it's always an important through line as well. Touch on some of the things you're seeing with philanthropic giving and maybe one or two things that are not necessarily innovations, but things you're doing now with your clients to help set them up for success to help nonprofits.
Yeah. I get so excited when we talk about this. Something wells up in me when we talk about the impact that we can make through giving. So one of the vehicles that we use the most are donor advised funds. And a decade ago, a lot of people didn't know about them. Thankfully, it's getting a lot more publicity these days. It's a pretty common thing in our world now. And so one of the major things that we do with clients is if they're charitably inclined, and kind of our ideal client is the generous entrepreneurial family that wants to be really intentional with multi-generational impact. And so majority of the families that we work with have donor advised funds. And so one of the coolest ways to make an impact, but also um, really help your tax picture, is to give appreciated shares of a security. You can also give real estate, you can give life insurance policies, you can give shares of your business, appreciated shares of a business. You can give all these things to donor advised fund. But the cool part about this is, I'll give you an example. We had a client, they just did a really big conversion from their traditional IRA to their Roth IRA. Well, when you do that, you create pretty significant tax implications. It's super beneficial long term, but it creates tax implications today. Well, what we did is we actually coupled a gift to their donor advised fund, and it was about $100,000 gift. Of that gift, they had it was something like $60,000 in gains. It was a pretty highly appreciated security. So in doing that, they not only got the $100,000 deduction, but they also eliminated the capital gains on the $60,000. And so for these guys, it saved them, I mean, for easy numbers, somewhere in the $12 to $15,000 range. And so we did a really cool long-term tax planning thing with the Roth conversion. We did a really cool thing by saving a lot of tax on these capital gains, but we did an amazing thing by giving to this donor advised fund, and then now they can take from that and they can bless uh, different 501(c)(3) nonprofits, their church, whatever the case is. And so those are the types of things that we're doing with charitably minded families and doing it in a tax efficient way. But the most important thing is it's creating more impact that they can make on these charitable organizations.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that example. That's awesome because, I mean, to your point, like it's dollars over here that you're going to get taxed on and lose, or you can use them to be able to fuel nonprofit giving. And so I
Exactly.
think that's amazing. Carry that into a timeline. So when you're sitting down, I mean, obviously these are continual conversations, ideally that you would have, but when you talk about that sort of story, how far in advance do you need to be thinking about this?
Yeah, it's so we're doing tax planning specifically with clients for 2027, 2028. So we're already looking down the pike, developing strategies. And so this specific example, we had been working on this one for probably 9 months to a year. Just kind of looking at the timing of all of it. They were having some life transition stuff, so it all just kind of worked out perfectly. But we've got another client who's got a pretty big liquidity event coming up this next year. But it's going to be a capital gains liquidity event. So it's not the best time for them to do a donor advised fund gift. It's going to be better for us to do a donor advised fund gift when they do a big Roth conversion in 2027. So we're already planning for these pieces. So it's ongoing. A ton of our time is spent here in the last quarter of the year doing tax planning, making sure RMDs are taken care of, qualified charitable distributions, conversions. It's just a lot, but um, it's always tied to going back to the beginning of our conversation to their long-term goals and that generational impact. And I probably spend 30, maybe probably 30% of my time in tax planning. And so making sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do to help them reach their goals, but do it super tax efficiently. And the more money we're entrusted with, the more important tax planning becomes. And so we spend a lot of time in that.
And I think all of that brings peace of mind, confidence, clarity to the families to know that, okay, this is, especially if you're talking like a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, it's like, okay, now we're all in lockstep. We know what we need to be doing. It gives you peace of mind. So
Right.
for you, touch on a little bit of your philanthropic and community support because you yourself heavily involved in the community. So touch on why that's important for you.
Oh man. Um, the main reason it's important is because I realize how fortunate we are. I'm going on a mission trip with my son next week to Mexico, and I know what I'm going to be stepping into. And when you get into some of these scenarios, you get to see we live in a bubble here in Tennessee. We live in a bubble here in Williamson County. And so getting outside of this, you really get great perspective of how fortunate we really are. And so that's why it's important to me. I realize that we've been entrusted with much. We've been given much. There's a part in scripture where it says, "To whom much is given, much is required." That's actually not about finances. It's actually about being a bearer of the gospel. And so we're required as receivers of that to share it. But I think it carries over from a stewardship perspective, kind of in total. And so I know how fortunate we are, and we've been given much. And so we want to take our time to serve our community, to serve in our church, to engage with City Current and with the folks that we get to engage with from a philanthropic perspective. And I've always heard there's this phrase, you give your life away, which is your labor, your influence, your finances, and your expertise. Said a different way, time, talents, and treasures. And so it's not just money. We have time that we can give away. We have expertise, influence, and of course, finances. And so it's just, we're just blessed, man. And so we've been entrusted much, so we want to give back as much and as best as we can.
Well, you've been a major part of City Current for a long time. We appreciate that for sure, and all the things you do to
Yeah.
power the good. So wrap up with contact information. Where can we go to carry this conversation forward?
Yeah, harvestfamilywealth.com is our website. We spent a lot of time on that thing, and so we're proud of it. We'd love for you to go check it out. Chris at Harvest Family Wealth is my email. We're on LinkedIn and that kind of stuff too. So always grateful to connect with you, Jeremy. It's just a joy to be with you, man. Thank you.
Well, Chris, thank you for all you and your amazing team do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.